Okay, we're recording. So I wanted to read you all something real quickly before Hannah got started because I feel like it goes with this time of year. And just a little icebreaker, I wanted to read it to you. It's very short. I don't know if you get emails from Sarah McKenzie, who wrote Teaching from Rest. I do not get her daily emails. But a fellow coach mom, Kim DeLugo, sent me this today, and I thought it goes with the November wearisome time. She says, the Sarah McKenzie email says, "Hi, I wanted to tell you something today on the off chance that you needed to hear it. Sometimes I feel like quitting. Quitting homeschool is what I'm talking about, though I also sometimes feel like quitting other important things in my life. Laundry, for example, or difficult people, or feeding kids every single day. It seems to me that the most important things in life make us weary from time to time, and right now, especially, a lot of us are W-E-A-R-Y. So perhaps we need the reminder it's just weariness after all. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that a little peace that passes all understanding can't remedy. G.K. Chesterton said that anything worth doing is worth doing badly. And what he meant was that something is worth doing in the first place, even if you currently aren't doing a great job at it. Prayer, let's say, worth doing, even if you aren't all that good at it, right? But feeding your kids, even if you aren't a gourmet chef. Running a laundry, even if you forget to separate the lights and the darks. I never do that actually anyway, ever. And I would argue homeschooling even on your worst days, because there is no one else on earth, not one, who loves your kids more than you do, who wants to see them succeed more than you do, who is willing to lay down their life for your child, like you are doing today. In fact, as you sit down, weary in your bones, and haul out the math book, the read aloud, the spelling list, and the crock pot, it's all worth doing no matter how well or poorly you feel about it. The secret, of course, is that the odds are extremely good that you are better at homeschooling than you think you are anyway. So I was planning on sending you a whole different note today, but then at the last minute, I decided to tell you this instead. Sometimes I feel like quitting. I bet you do too. But what you are doing matters a lot, and it's worth doing. So don't quit. I'm rooting for you, Sarah McKenzie. So when I asked Hannah to speak, I said, I want you to talk to us about why you're thankful you were homeschooled. Because in November and around February, everybody wants to quit. And this is her first year homeschooling. So I didn't want to rain on her parade too badly, but I just had to be real with her and say, this is a really tough time before the holidays that people get tired. And so even people who aren't on tonight are going to want to watch this later because they know they want to hear what Hannah has to say from her experience. So that's kind of where I was going with the whole 5 reasons why I'm thankful I was homeschooling, because I thought you all might need an extra boost of gratitude for what we're doing now. Hannah's a dear friend of mine, and I will brag and say if it were not for Hannah, I probably would not be here. I probably would not know any of you. She is one of 2 people who convinced me to homeschool. The one friend is a local friend who homeschooled her kids all the way through, but Hannah was the icing on the cake. Hannah came to my town, and she was my preacher's wife for a while, and basically said, I just don't even know why you're not homeschooling. And I thought, you're crazy. I could never do that. So the rest is history. And I'm so, so grateful to know her. So I know you will appreciate what she has to say. And here's Hannah.
Hey, everybody. I was telling Vicki, this is I think my second time on Zoom. So if I seem really awkward, that's because I'm just not used to this like you guys are. So just bear with me. But thanks for doing this. And thank you, Vicki, for having me. I just have to say, I love Vicki Yoakum, and I love all the work that she does. And I love that she is one of the best encouragers I've ever met. And she would not tell you this probably, but I can call her during a homeschool day and say, hey, show me your letterbox. And she will open up a box of all this stuff to show my kid. Look, all these things start with the letter P. Let's go through every one. And look, here's a book about the letter P. Let me just read it to you. So anyway, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for her friendship, and I'm grateful for this community that is happening because of her. And so I just want to say I love you and thank you for what you do. So let's get to it. My sole purpose of doing this is to offer you some encouragement. Like Vicki said, this is my first year homeschooling my kids, at least in an official sense. So I have very little advice to offer, and I would much rather be hearing from all of you about how to homeschool, but that's not why I'm here. This is not my first exposure to homeschooling. I was homeschooled all the way through, and the reason I'm on here is to encourage you to keep going. I know that you've already made the decision to homeschool, so everything I'm going to say to you is probably stuff you already know. I'm saying it because you probably need the reminder. We all know, like Vicki said, that around this time of year, we need the reminder. We need to go back and think about the reasons why we started homeschooling in the first place. And for me, that's not really hard to do because I've already been through all those years of homeschooling and I'm on the other side of that. And I know the impact that homeschooling has made on my life and my journey. We all want to raise our kids and teach our kids in such a way that they will one day be grateful for their upbringing rather than feeling like they have to spend the rest of their lives recovering from their childhood, as a lot of friends of mine feel. And I hate that. And I want more than anything for my kids to grow up and be like, I'm so glad, she wasn't perfect, but I'm so glad she made the choices that she did to keep us home and homeschool us. And I think that there's a right and wrong way to do it. And so I want to talk about my story with you a little bit to just encourage you. So I just want to say I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that my parents cared enough about me, enough about my spiritual, academic, emotional, mental well-being to homeschool me. At the time when they started, there was nobody that was homeschooling. They knew nobody. And it's such a different game now. There's so many materials and resources and communities that are doing this, especially during the pandemic, that there's just, you're not alone anymore, but they were pioneers. They were doing this completely on their own. And I know that there were times that my mom absolutely wanted to quit. I know that there were, especially with me, I was the hard one. My brother was like easy all the way through. But with me, I know there were times she wanted to quit. There were times that she got discouraged. There were times that she was tired of hearing me complain. And I know I said awful things about how I wished I was in real school. Don't you hate that? As if what we're doing is not real school. But I would say things like that. And I know it infuriated her. But I'm so thankful that she stuck with it, that she didn't give up. And there are a lot of reasons that I'm glad I was homeschooled, but Vicki asked me to do 5. So I'm going to talk about 5 reasons I'm glad I was homeschooled. And I'm going to close with the most important reason. So one reason I'm glad is flexibility. I never felt like I had to compete academically. I never felt like I was limited in what I could achieve. And that's why it wasn't unusual for me to be barreling through 7th grade English and crawling through 5th grade math. And if you ask a homeschool kid what grade they're in, sometimes they're like, I don't know what grade I'm in because they're kind of all over the place. And I was. But it was because I was learning at different speeds with different things because I had different skill sets. After I went through Freed-Hardeman, I was at Freed-Hardeman for 4 years. And then after that, I got a job teaching high school English. And I only did that for 1 year because I got married and moved away and got a different job because I didn't love teaching high school. But anyway, during that year, I was amazed because I was used to homeschooling. And my first time ever in a public school was as a teacher. And so, they were like, here's your hall pass. And I was like, what's a hall pass? And they were like, you're going to stand here and help the kids get on the bus. And I didn't understand. I just had so many questions that none of the other teachers had because they had grown up in public school. And so I looked really, really dumb most of the time. But anyway, when I was teaching, I was taught to teach in the middle. And what I mean by that is they were like, you're going to have 30 kids in your classroom for every period, 25 to 30 kids. And I had taught 9th grade, and you're going to have some that can like barely read. And then you're going to have some that are on a 12th grade level. And you just have to kind of teach in the middle. and hope that they can all kind of benefit. And they probably said it better than that, but I mean, that was the general gist of what they wanted me to do as a teacher. And it was shocking to me because I thought, well, that's not fair to either group. That's not fair to the ones who are struggling because they can't keep up. And it's not fair to the more advanced ones because they're being held back. And so basically I had to constantly dumb down the material for those smarter kids, those more gifted students, and they were disadvantaged. Both sets of kids were disadvantaged. And I hated that. And I never had to feel like that as a student. I never felt disadvantaged academically. If I struggled in something in math or science, usually we would slow down and we would review and we'd pull in other resources to practice, just like you guys, I'm sure, are doing with your kids. And I was able to practice until I got it. And then we could proceed. If I was excelling in English or history or whatever, we could speed it up a little. We weren't slaves to the curriculum. We could go on at our own pace. And I loved that. We could move through it more quickly. Basically what I'm saying is I never had to be bored with the curriculum. And I never had to keep going, even though I didn't understand. We could be flexible with our time. I used to worry as a student growing up, I used to worry that public school kids were getting more. They were smarter than me because they were at school longer every day. And they were there from 7:30 to 3 or so every day. And man, I started school around 8 in my pajamas and I was done by lunchtime usually. And I thought, man, I must be really dumb because all these kids they're at school all day long and man, they must be learning so much more than me. And then I taught public school and I found out what I had missed out on. Nothing. I had missed out on nothing because there's so much wasted time in school. And I was shocked by it. There's so much waiting around for the next thing. There's so much waiting in line. There's so much waiting for other kids to finish their test. There's so much waiting. And so you're at school all day long when really, if you were just one-on-one with a teacher, you could be done by lunchtime like I was. And so what that meant was it opened up time for me as a kid to do other things, time spent getting that homework done early, time spent with my family, time spent working on hobbies, time spent playing outside. All of those things I was able to do because I was homeschooled, because I wasn't waiting around in public school. Kids in public school are slaves to the school schedule. If you miss a few days of school in public school, it's hard to get caught up. With homeschool, if you go on a trip, you can just work extra hard before you go and enjoy the trip and not have to worry. Or you can take your school books with you on that trip. You can get it done during downtimes on the trip. You can do school outside on pretty days when you're homeschooled. You can take play breaks when you need them. And now that I'm homeschooling a little boy, I realize how important that is and how I can't, and this is probably going to sound ignorant, but I just can't imagine him being in school, in public school, because he's so active and he needs breaks every now and then to go out and run, to go jump on the trampoline, to go swing in our play set. And I give him those breaks so that we can come back and focus. And you can do that kind of thing in homeschool. I was able to do that kind of thing. Kids in public school don't have that luxury of getting to make school work for your family, for your individual needs and schedules. My dad is a preacher. And we were able to travel with him so often to get to see cool places, to experience cool things, to meet different people, because we weren't slaves to a rigid school schedule. We would get it done on our own time. We didn't have to miss out on unique experiences that happened while other kids were in school. Family vacations were pretty amazing for my family because we would go while school was in session, always. And there was a reason for that. And it was because all of the touristy spots were virtually empty. We weren't having to wait forever in lines. But also our vacations. And at the time I was like, oh, we're so nerdy. Our family's doing nerdy school trips, but we would go to these cool historical places like Williamsburg and Washington, DC and Philadelphia and Boston. And we were learning history the whole time. So that counted in our 180 days. And that meant we got to get done earlier than public school kids a lot of the time. because of the flexibility of homeschooling, I also got to go on a lot of foreign mission trips that I would not have been able to go on. In high school, the elders at my congregation were supporting several different works, and my parents went to those elders and they said, we really want her to get a taste of foreign mission work in third world countries. Is there a way that she could, if she raised her own money, if she could go on these trips and help out? And they said, yeah, let's have Hannah write us a VBS curriculum. And so I was able to write a whole curriculum for a VBS that we could take overseas. And I was able to go to like 4 or 5 different countries to do this VBS and to help out and door knock and all these things. And that was counted for school. And I would never have gotten those experiences had I been in public school. So I'm just so thankful for that flexibility that made it possible to do things like that. Okay, so another reason I loved being homeschooled is academic integrity and freedom. Homeschooling means that you get to shape the worldview of your children. You get to choose the information that they ingest. If you haven't already read it, I recommend the book Persecution by David Limbaugh. In that book, he tells about middle school history books used in public schools in which, and these are just some examples, there's a ton of examples in the book, but I just wrote these down. There are 6.5 lines about George Washington and 6.5 pages about Madonna. In these books, there are 21 pages about Thanksgiving and not one mention of God. Instead, it says Thanksgiving is about being thankful to the Indians. And that's what they're taught in school. It has nothing to do with giving thanks to God. It's about giving thanks to the Indians. And also in that book, it talks about, and this is all recent times, in which 7th graders in California were forced to spend a whole week pretending that they were Muslims and learning how to pray to Allah. And all of these activities were graded and nobody was exempt. And of course, you know, the Bible and Christianity were mostly forbidden topics. We're not going to study that, but we're going to study how to be a Muslim and how to pray to Allah. A similar study like that is done in a lot of middle schools and high schools in our nation. I was just looking it up, and there's some in Tennessee that do it, and that's where I live. But in the current climate in which we're living, the world, the public school system, they want your kids to believe that there is no such thing as absolute truth, that truth is just a relative, fluid thing, and my truth may not be the same as your truth. And what that means, it sounds good, but what that means is, doesn't matter how you live, doesn't matter what you think, what you do, or who you obey. And in homeschool, you can teach your children that absolute truth can be ascertained. You can know truth. You can avoid being duped by relativism. Your children need to know this. You need to make finding truth so important to your children. Not my truth, not a truth, the truth. They need to know that they can find the truth. And once you establish that, you can easily establish how that truth affects everything about our lives. Your children need to see that truth is real and attainable. So we're living in, and you know this as well as I do, but we're living in an emperor's new clothes society, a society in which we can see things that don't make sense, things that don't line up with God's word, but we're falling. Everybody's falling for this mob mentality that truth is relative. And so we can't say anything's wrong. We can't just go out and say, okay, this is not right. We got to stand up about this. People are scared to stand up for truth. When you're homeschooling your children, you get to stand up for that truth every day, and they get to see that truth is real, it's attainable, it's absolute. But on the other side of that coin, choosing how and what to teach your kids doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice academic excellence. You don't have to sacrifice anything that you would be getting in public school as far as your education. And I struggled with whether to say this. I really debated about this because I don't want it to sound like bragging at all. But when I'm talking about my own experience, I have to bring all this to the table. when I was going to Freed-Hardeman in my senior year of high school, because of my ACT score and my GPA, I was able to get full tuition, room and board at Freed. And I tell you that not because, oh, look at what I did, but because I want you to see that this is attainable, that this is doable. And there wasn't anything special or super smart about me at all. It was because I took it 6 times and I really studied every time until I finally got that score. And then I was able to get that full ride. Even so, with all, my baby is crying. Can y'all hold on 1 second? Okay, let me get my husband to get her. Just a second.
We are all about that.
Okay, hold on. Can you get the baby? She's crying. I was hoping she'd stay down, but sorry. Okay. When I got to Freed, I was scared that I was going to be behind, and I was scared that I wasn't going to be able to keep up because all these kids had been to public school and I had been homeschooled, and I thought, oh, they're going to know things that I don't know. They're going to have study skills that I don't have. That I thought, oh, they've got all this to their advantage. And what if I don't know how to do this school thing because I've never experienced anything but homeschool? And then I quickly discovered that I was fully prepared, at least in an academic sense, for college. And I was surprised by how easy it was compared to what I'd been through in high school. My mom was so thorough in making sure that I was prepared. She would make me, instead of just like a history textbook, and I think Shelley does this too, but she had us read big, thick nonfiction history novels. And we would have to read several throughout the year. And then be able to write papers on them and answer questions about them to make sure we understood everything. And that was so not what my friends in high school were doing in public school, but I loved it. And because I was a reader. And so I was able to do that. And then also when I was a senior, I wrote a 30-page paper on whether homosexuality is genetic. And I remember I did, a works cited page and footnotes, and it was all, perfect MLA style. I don't even know what they use now, if they use MLA, but I did. And then I was shocked. I thought that was what college was going to be like. And then I got to college and I realized, oh, I'm never going to have to write a 30-page paper ever. Like my mom just made me work that hard so that I would be prepared. And so even as an English major, I never had to write another paper that was that hard. I had to work hard in school. I was given no other option. But then when I taught high school, I was so sad because I would, give them these assignments and then I would just watch as I would hand back their papers or their test. They would get these horrible grades back. And then as they were leaving the classroom, they would just crumple it up and throw it away. And they were so glad that it was over. And they'd never have to think about it again. I never had that privilege. I never got that luxury of just being able to get it over with and be done, because I had to keep on doing it until I mastered it. I was never given the luxury of being lazy, and I'm so thankful for that. Albert Einstein said, "Great spirits have always been violently oppressed by mediocre minds." Homeschool allows us to thrive. I had to work hard, but at the same time, it wasn't all, miserable. It was, I got to focus on things that I loved and enjoyed doing. I got to take French because I was obsessed with Paris in high school. I got to count practicing things that I loved, like Lads to Leaders and Bible Bowl as school for Bible. I got to take piano and voice lessons because I was interested in that without adding any more hours to our regular school day. I got to slow down and better understand things when I struggled. I love how homeschooling can be designed to encourage and enhance the skills and interests of each individual student, but also to slow down and take time on things we don't understand or need extra practice for. Public schoolers don't really get to do that, at least not nearly as much. They're expected to do exactly what everybody else does and at exactly the same pace. Homeschoolers are given a huge amount of freedom, academic freedom. room to grow, room to stretch, room to slow down, room to explore, room to be unique, all of those things. And I love that about homeschooling. Number 3, family. I loved getting to grow up with my brother. I loved that I didn't just have to check in with my family before supper and bed at the end of the day, which I know so many of my friends, that's what their school life looks like. They do school all day long. If they have something after school, it's even more. Then they come home, they eat supper, they shower, they go to bed, they do homework somewhere in there, and that's it. That's their family life. Sometimes they do things on the weekends, but the weekdays, I mean, it's just school. That's it. And that was not my life. We did our lives together. We were a tight-knit team. We did everything together. We would do read aloud. We did all kinds of books together every single day. We did science experiments as a family. We played outside together as a family. My dad would come home from work every day and have lunch with us because he just had that kind of job and he lived close to home where he could do that. I don't know a lot of families that have the same kind of bond that my family has. And I attribute a lot of that to the fact that we were homeschooled. And I know that you can be close to your family when you're public schooled, but I know that for us, being homeschooled allowed us to have that special bond. And my brother and I remained close. And I don't know a lot of teen girls who are as close to their brother as I was. And, you know, I got to Freed Hardeman, he was there for 4 years. And then I came in as a freshman right after he graduated, and he had all these friends there that would come up to me in the cafeteria to check on me because my brother had texted them and said, hey, check on my sister this week, and asked me how I was doing. And I'm just saying that we had a really special bond, and I love that I got to grow up with him because of homeschool. All right, number 4, shelter. So the verb form of shelter is defined to protect someone from danger, and the synonyms include harbor, refuge, cover, defend, protect, safeguard, screen, secure, and shield. So I don't know about you, but in the current climate of our society, I don't think of any of those words as negative when it comes to how we feel about our kids. I know that we can't shield our kids from the wickedness outside the 4 walls of our homes forever, but we can protect their innocence much, much longer by homeschooling. I'm so thankful that my parents felt the same way and decided to keep us at home. I'm thankful for that shelter. That's not to say that we weren't socialized. I know that's the most annoying thing that we hear as homeschool moms is what about socialization? But I mean, we did not lack for socialization. We were involved in community theater and softball and basketball and a lot of different things. It just means that my parents had some control over the kind of influences that we were exposed to on a regular basis. They got to decide when we learned about sex. They got to decide when we learned about what the world calls alternate lifestyles. They got to decide. They got to protect what my icons were, who I looked up to the most, what kind of entertainment I enjoyed, the people I would spend the most time with. They got to have a say in all that. I'm so grateful for the sweet and innocent childhood that I was able to live out because my parents sheltered me. And as a kid, when I would hear, oh, you're so sheltered, I would bristle. I was so embarrassed that I was sheltered. But as an adult, I praise God for it. And I'm doing the same thing with my kids through homeschool, and I'm thankful. I'm so thankful for it. All right. I saved the very most important one for last, and that is God in every subject. The main reason I'm so thankful I was homeschooled is because of the spiritual foundation it gave me. Had I been public schooled, 8 hours of every weekday would have been spent not only void of biblical instruction, but they would have been peppered with teaching that promotes a disbelief in God and his word. In Deuteronomy 6, 5-9, it says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Because I was homeschooled, that Deuteronomy 6 kind of all day long teaching and involvement was our reality. And I had no idea at the time how precious that was and how unique that was. You have to figure out, you don't have to homeschool your family to go to heaven. You don't have to homeschool your family to live out this kind of Deuteronomy 6 thing, but you have to figure out how to make the most important thing in your home. Matthew 6:33. In our homeschool growing up, we got the curriculum in, we got the academia covered, but so much of our school day was spent learning the scriptures, learning how to serve others, going out and serving, learning how to defend the faith, being ready to be disciples in this world. We all want our kids to grow up and be successful, happy, productive adults. I mean, that's the goal. We all want to give our kids the richest education we can offer them so that they can go on and make something of themselves. But don't get caught up in the stuff that in the end really doesn't matter. True success isn't a high ACT score. True success isn't getting into a prestigious university. True success isn't raising your kids to become doctors or lawyers or athletes or astronauts. True success is living your life and going to heaven. That's not about it. That's it. That's the most important thing. Being able to instill in your kids and raise them to honor God and live as true disciples is what homeschooling is all about. And it gets to be what you decide you want it to be. I love this quote. This is from Barbara Frank. When it comes to my children, my ultimate goal for them is heaven, not Harvard. If they go to the latter on their way to heaven, that's great. But if I reverse that equation, I have failed them. I've talked about 5 great reasons to homeschool tonight, but here's the thing. If you could have none of those things, no flexibility, no fun, no academic strength or freedom, no educational field trips, no tight-knit relationship with your siblings, no community of homeschoolers, but your kids still went to heaven, it'd be worth it. Even if homeschool was miserable, even if every day of homeschool was miserable and your kids still got to heaven, it'd be worth it. I'm not saying that you have to homeschool to get your kids to heaven. What I am saying is that you have to figure out the best way to live out Deuteronomy 6 and Psalm 127 and Matthew 6:33 in the short years that you've been given to raise your kids. My parents decided the best way for our family to work toward that goal was to homeschool. And I'm so grateful for that. My husband and I have made the same decision, as you know. So I hope this has been a little bit encouraging to you in your journey. I know that it's stuff that you have already thought about, or you probably wouldn't have chosen to homeschool in the first place, but I just want to edify you and encourage you to keep going, to keep at it. What you're doing matters. It matters in an eternal living sacrifice kind of way. I'm going to close with Galatians 6:9, and then I'll give it back to Vicki. And let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Thank you.
Amen. That is my favorite verse.
It's a good one.
Yep. That was great. And I am going to ask you to text me the name of that book with the correct spelling of the author. Mm-hmm. So I can post that if anybody missed that, because I missed his last name. So
it's Limbaugh, the same as Rush. I think it's his brother.
So Persecution by David Limbaugh.
Yeah, but I'll send it to you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions either about what she said or something that, you know, depending on how old your kids are, what you would like her to maybe help you with? Let's see. We do have a compliment. Very encouraging. Thank you in the chat box. I agree. That was very encouraging. Just unmute. Shelly, what are you saying? Unmute
I said, I
yourself.
have a question.
Okay.
Is there anything that you wish your parents had done that they didn't do to prepare you, that maybe you felt like they could have done something a little better?
And we're
or
not going to
differently?
tell them. We're not going to
No,
tell
we're not
them.
going to tell anyone. I'm just curious because I'm always, whenever I get a chance to talk to someone who's homeschooled, I always find it interesting the things that they were like, yeah, my parents never really did this, or they did it in a certain way, and I wish it had been like this, or.
I will say they did the very best they could with what they were given with me.
Right.
No, I can't think of anything. There were times when I would, really struggle in one area, and they would find me a tutor, somebody that knew better than they did. And I really enjoyed that. I loved, we did co-op every week. I loved that. There are certain times when, they might not have been as schooled on certain things that I, maybe would have needed a little more instruction in. Like I got to school and I was like, okay, I don't know anything about physical science when I got to college, but I did fine. I think I got a B in the class. So in answer to your question, no, I really think they did the best they could. And I never really felt behind in any way.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay. Anybody else have any questions about, even if it's not preparing for the big stuff like college, even if it's about mother-daughter relationship or daddy-girl relationship, or how she saw her parents deal with naysayers, or what she remembers most, because we all know that what we think kids are going to remember is not what they remember. Okay, I will go. We all know that boys and girls are very different. And if you are lucky enough to have one of each, you know this. So what are your best tips for how you saw your mother productively deal with the fact that she was your teacher and your mother during your teenage years when she really was not your favorite person?
So one thing that mom did that I really loved is that she was very intentional about building a rapport and a relationship with me that was not school related. Because I think for those of us who homeschool, it's really easy to think of everything as school. And because it is, everything can be school and everything can be educational. And so I think it's kind of hard for us to turn that off and say, okay, now we're just going to have fun. And,
Right.
Because, school can be fun. But she made it a point. There were some things that she would do every single day that made a difference. And one was that she made it a point to get down on my level, even at a young age, and say something good about my character, compliment something about me that had nothing to do with looks every day. And so that was always encouraging, especially on the hard days, that she would find something good to say about me and encourage me every day. And also, she would make sure that even when I was being stubborn and didn't want to obey, that, she had to win every time. And she had to, it was not going to, because homeschool is not going to work if your kids are winning battles in your home. And so she knew that. And I remember this one time, all week long, we had looked forward to, we were going to have a babysitter. It was Mallory Baker. And for those of you who know her, she was my babysitter. You can really make fun of her later for how old she is. She'll love that. But anyway, she was my babysitter, and she was going to come spend a couple of days with us because my parents were finally going to, for their anniversary, they were going to get away. She was going to come. And that day, I don't know what was wrong with me. I was possessed, I guess. But that day that they were going to go on that trip, I just decided I wasn't going to do the work. I was not going to apply myself. I was not going to listen. I was not going to do school. I was going to think about how much fun we were going to have while they were on their trip, and I wasn't going to try. And so it was just an all day battle, and I was not submitting to her. And my parents had already like paid for their, it wasn't an Airbnb then, it was a bed and breakfast. They had already paid for it and everything. And they had to call and cancel their trip because she said, we can't leave while it's like this, where she can just feel like she can win and she can have fun all weekend, while she didn't obey. And so there were times when she would really dig in her heels and make sure that I learned that I had to submit to her. But then there were other times, which I'm saying she did the right thing, which I would never have said that then, but she did the right thing. And then every single week she would have mother-daughter time with me, and I looked forward to that. And it was a time when it was not school related at all, and we would go do something fun. We would go to the mall, we'd go out to eat, we'd go play putt-putt golf, we'd go shopping, whatever it was. But that was just special time with me and her. That was just fun, and there was no school. And that really solidified a relationship between us, I think. I don't know. This is probably not helpful.
No, it's very good. I'm sure everybody really appreciated that. I mean, I do too. I'm just saying, I think it's helpful for everybody, not just me. Leah, did you have something? Okay. Becky Johnson, I'll just share, said that the book is easy to find on Amazon. So it's easy to find. Okay, did I miss anybody else? Anybody else have a question or a comment? Okay, you've covered everything so well. Everybody's just basking in the glory.
Well, I've really enjoyed this. Thanks for having me.
You are so very welcome. And
you don't hear my baby screaming, by the way?
No, I cannot hear her at all.
Good.
Okay, Shelly has agreed to close us in prayer. Is there anything dire that we need to pray for, like in a timely manner tonight, that is going to be happening tomorrow or anything?
I have one. My sister-in-law is, y'all don't tell anybody because I don't think they're announcing it on Facebook, but she's having a baby tomorrow. So be praying about that. Well, she's going to be induced tomorrow morning. So. Okay.
Awesome. And is it a boy?
It's a girl.
It's a girl. Okay.
My other sister-in-law is also pregnant with a boy. That's probably what you're thinking.
See, that's what I'm thinking. Okay. I was all mixed up.
Sister who's having the baby tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. All right. Don't forget to unmute yourself, Shelly.
Yeah, I almost forgot. Okay, if y'all would bow with me. God, we just want to thank you so much for Hannah and her insight and wisdom into a perspective as a former homeschooled student, now homeschool mom, that a lot of us don't have. And we just want to thank you for letting her share that with us to encourage us, because the month of November is so difficult so many times. And we just want to thank you for helping her to remind us of why we do what we do, why we stay home, why we choose to teach our children, why we choose to invest so much of ourselves into their precious souls and their education. And we just want to thank you for letting her speak to us tonight. Please bless Hannah as she homeschools her own children, and help her to find her tribe among us, that she knows that she can come to us as she needs us. Thank you for letting her share. Please be with her sister-in-law tomorrow. Is such an exciting thing as a new baby being born. And we just want to pray that you will guide the doctors and the nurses, and that that precious baby will be healthy and happy, and all will go well with that. And we want to thank you for Vicki and her starting this group and letting us all come together, and be with every mom here tonight and her family. As we finish out the month of November and head into December and the holiday season, help us to remember that this might be a difficult time of year, but that there are more important things that are going on within our children's lives than just making sure that we check the boxes and finish the books. And help us to keep that in the forefront of our mind. And please help us in our nation as we muddle through what's left of this election process, and no matter who wins, help us to remember that you are on the throne and you are in charge, and that we're preparing our children to be citizens of your kingdom first and foremost. And we just ask all of these things in your precious son's name. Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much. All right, girls. Same time, same place next month. I'll see you December 7th, if not before.
Yay.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
Welcome.